Common complaint that I get when people are coming in to see me, a lot of times they've spent a significant amount of time bench pressing, all variations of pressing, but specifically bench. And they often complain about front of the shoulder pain. They'll get a little bit in the pec, but oftentimes it's just in the bottom of the press, or if they're vertically pressing, in the bottom of the press, or as they start to power out of the hole, they'll get just gross soreness through the front of the shoulder. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the quick fixes that I give them to help kind of downplay, mitigate symptoms. Just some of the things that I explain to them and then prescribe them during one of their appointments. The reason why we're looking at the back side of the shoulder. So you've got back of the arm, shaft of the humerus, shoulder blade, mid back, ribs. So the area in question is highlighted in red. So this is called your infraspinatus muscle. So if you roll around on a foam roller or are rolling around on a lacrosse ball or have a lacrosse ball pinned against the wall, the area you're hunting for, you'll find that bony ridge, the spine of the scapula. You're hunting for the area just underneath it. The reason why it's important is that if that muscle, infraspinatus, part of your rotator cuff, if that gets spicy, so the X's are indicative of the most common areas that get trigger points, but trigger points can occur anywhere in the muscle belly. So if you get spicy here, here, or all of the above, it can refer anywhere you see red clusters. So it can refer into the front of the shoulder, bicep, forearm, hand. That's the front side. It can refer into the back side, base of the skull. It can refer into the inside edge of the shoulder blade. So sometimes people look at these things as like, oh, well, I don't have that, but I kind of have that and that. It doesn't have to be all of these, or it can be actually be all of these just stacked on one another. So sometimes the symptoms may not be this entire cluster. It might just be that where you've got really concentrated pain in the front of the shoulder. Maybe you've treated the mess out of the front of your shoulder and not much has changed. But if you haven't done a lot to the back of the shoulder, that's likely the culprit. So here we have the pec anatomy. So looking at the front of the body, so sternum, your head would be up here, collarbone, great big old pec muscle coming off the sternum, underside of the collarbone, it all comes over and attaches to the front of your arm, to your humerus. And so we've got all these different fibers that accomplish different things depending on the position of the arm. But make sure that you realize that it's ratios of work. A lot of times people go, oh, I'm only working my upper pec or my mid pec or my lower pec. All of them are involved. But as your arm changes positions, you bias different muscle fibers with different movements. So flat bench, incline bench, decline bench, you're going to bias a ratio of work out of more fibers than the others. But understand that all of them are involved. There's no way of just specifically targeting this and keeping these quiet. The reason why all of those pec fiber divisions are important is depending on where you have trigger points. If you have trigger points in the upper pec, they can refer out into the shoulder, very similar to what we were seeing with infraspinatus. If it's more in the middle fibers, it can still refer into the shoulder, but it's going to be more meat of the pec, but it can also refer down the arm into the medial forearm. If they're in the lower fibers of the pec, it can refer also right into the meat of the pec, but it can get you up into the armpit as well. So same thing like we talked about with infraspinatus, it may not exclusively be one of these. You could stack all three of these referral patterns, these clusters, on top of one another. So when you're smashing with a lacrosse ball, the areas in question that you're looking for are your landmarks, are the middle of your chest, your sternum, underside of your collarbone, edge of your armpit, and underside of the pec. So basically you're going to take that lacrosse ball, you're going to trap it between either a rig post in your chest or a door jamb in your chest, and think of this as a larger extension of the thumb. So you're going to lean against it, trap that ball somewhere in the pec meat, and then you're just going to hunt around. You'll shimmy the body on the lacrosse ball, but as you hunt around, you're hunting for tender spots, almost like you're on a foam roller doing your quads or your glutes. If something is wildly tender, you want to lean in on that spot and just hang out and breathe. Now, as you're mashing tissue, if you're feeling froggy, you can let that arm dangle and then you can actually move it. So as we're pinning that lacrosse ball down into the pec, you can create little arcs of motion, either forward and back, out to the side, hand behind the head, hand to the butt, or middle of the back. And you'll feel that pec move in different capacities depending on where you are in all of this real estate. When you're doing the rotator cuff, so you're trapping that, if you've got a Theracane, use a Theracane, but if you're just trapping the lacrosse ball between your shoulder blade and the wall, your landmarks are similar to the pec in that you're hunting for their very distinct landmarks. That's what I should say. So you're going to find the inner edge of your shoulder blade and you're going to roll just adjacent to it. But then as you roll up and down on it, you'll find that you fall off the bottom side of the shoulder blade. You want to stay on the shoulder blade. So as you roll north on it, if you find that ridge, that spine of the scapula, you want to stay just underneath it. So if you'll use those three landmarks, so spine of the scapula, inside edge of the shoulder blade, and lower edge of the shoulder blade, and just linger there, you're going to probably find some gross spots. And so similar to the pec, you have options. So as I trap tissue, I can just lean on it. So I can pull on that Theracane, I can lean into that lacrosse ball and just create a whole bunch of pressure on that trigger point. And you may feel it actively refer out into the shoulder. It may refer to the front. You might get a little bit of referral down in between the shoulder blades. But the big thing is that you're just putting pressure on it, breathing into it. And then same thing with the pec. If you're feeling froggy, keep pressure on it, drop that arm, and then create some motion. So now we're flossing that trigger point across the point of that cane or lacrosse ball. So a stretch for the pec that you can do, find a door jamb, rig, piece of equipment, something you can put your arm up on. So a lot of times what you'll see people do is they get their fully outstretched arm on that immovable object, and then they lean in as if they're trying to rip their arm off. And all they end up complaining about is just high pressure in their shoulder. They don't ever actually find a lot of stretch in the pec. They usually get it from the shoulder. They'll find a stretch in their bicep, maybe at their elbow, and they just totally overshoot the pec. So what I want instead is find that same object, bend your elbow to 90 degrees. Now with this, it's going to be unique to you. So totally subjective. It's where you feel the stretch. So I like to start people elbow at 90 degrees. And all you're doing, rather than leaning in, trying to rip the arm off, I want you to rotate away, hunting for that stretch anywhere from those landmarks we discussed earlier. So inner edge of the sternum, lower edge of the pec, collarbone, right across the front, but not into the shoulder. So if you find a stretch here, great. Lean, hang out, 30 seconds to 60 seconds. If you don't get a lot out of this position, then what I would do is come back to that starting position and either slide your elbow slightly above shoulder height or slightly below shoulder height. You could do all three elbow positions. It's really based on what you're feeling. But again, none of it should create high pain, high pressure in the shoulder. It should just be a stretch across the meat of the